Hey guys, Nick here and welcome to another Davinci Resolve tutorial. Today we're going to be creating a BennTK transition effect that he did in his Thailand vlog video inside of Fusion in Davinci Resolve 16. It still works in 15, so let's have a quick look at what he's done and how we're going to replicate it. So as you can see, it's quite a complicated transition effect there, and we'll watch it again. So there's some glowing elements, spinning elements. So the best thing about this transition is it's really tasteful and it progresses the story. It's not really tacky. So the way we're going to do this one is with a still image, and the way I believe he's done it is he's got a bit of footage that leads up into it, and then he would have taken a freeze frame at this point, maybe emulated some camera movements, and then you have your turn and spin there. So to do this, I'm using an image I grabbed off of pexels.com. It's a free stock image and video resource site, so just this one here. That being said, any sort of image would work. This one's just circular, sort of helps us replicate the exact effect he did, and it's got a couple of different elements that we'll be able to animate. So this is the one we're going to use. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to check it out. And then what else you're going to need is just another video clip of any kind. So in Davinci Resolve, if we open this up here, so I've got this wall image that I've got here, and all I did is chop it into Photoshop, mirror it across, so we've got a nice sort of even image. And then I grabbed a random video just off of Pexels as well, just the Great Wall of China. Figured it kind of made sense. So what we're going to do is drag the Chinese wall image onto our timeline, and with the Great Wall video, just the video onto our timeline. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to drag the Chinese wall image and put it on the second video track so that it's on top. And currently it goes for 5 seconds. That should be enough to complete the transition we need. So then we're going to drag the video underneath so that in Fusion we'll be able to mask things out. You'll be able to see this video underneath, and we're just going to make it go for 10 seconds all up. So drop it down 10 seconds. It doesn't matter how long it goes for, just 10 seconds makes me feel comfortable creating this in Fusion. So we're going to select these two, right click, go new Fusion clip, and then with our playhead over the top, we're going to jump into Fusion. So just so you guys are aware, this is not for the faint of heart. This is a very complicated transition, so make sure you've watched a few videos on how to use nodes in Fusion first before continuing. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange tools to grid. I do this because I just like it. The fact that they snap around helps me organize things. And now we're just going to quickly organize things. So we're going to rename. So we're going to chuck media 1 into the first viewer, media 2 into the second viewer, and media 1 we're going to rename Great Wall, and media 2 we're going to rename bloody hell, sculpture. I don't know, sculpture. All right, so what are we going to do first? Well, let's create the black hole that we're going to transition through first. That doesn't make too much sense. So with the sculpture selected, we're going to shift space and type ellipse. So we're going to create a mask. And then basically what we're going to do is I'm just going to make one viewer first just so that I can see what I'm doing. And we're going to make this ellipse pretty much cover the inside of this sort of wheel here. And this is going to be that tunnel that we transition through. So we need to change the size of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to there. It's pretty close. Then just change the height. Looks pretty good to me. Like so. And then all we're going to do is invert the mask. And by doing so, now you can see we have this hole. And if we go back to the start of the video and we put, if we zoom out and put media out into the export, now you can see that if we play this, we have our Great Wall, video on the inside there. And so just while we're doing this transition, making sure you have the right sort of output in your viewer is going to be very, very important in creating this effect. So now we're going to copy and paste the sculpture, nodes. We're going to Control C and Control V, automatically going to create a merge node for us. And we're going to bring this one down here, rename this one, And we're going to rename this the inner circle. Okay. And so with that one selected, we're going to shift space and again, ellipse. And we're just going to chuck this one into viewer 1 just so we can see what we're doing. We're going to do the exact same thing we did before. So we're going to move the ellipse around, going to change the width so that it covers the inside and lower that down so we have the inner section. So, and we can see how this is affecting it on the other side. So we want to make sure that it covers everything. So I reckon that looks pretty good like that. So also, just so you know, if you want to control the width and height the exact same, just double click in one, go equals, hit enter. Then you can create your little sort of pick whip tool, pick it to the width, and then hit enter. And now if you move the width around, it's going to just move it as, you know, one whole element. So we're just going to move that up so that it covers everything. We can see that in our final output there. And lastly, with the inner circle selected, we're going to add a transform node. We're going to chuck that in and just shift drag it until you get this line and release. So now we have our transform. And what this allows us to do is rotate it. But you can see here, as I rotate, it's kind of spinning weird. And that's because we need to change the axes of where it spins. At the moment, this is the point it's spinning from. It needs to spin from here. We control that by using the pivot point. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag it down. And as you can see here, that yellow, that green cross is moving. And we're going to just move it more or less in the center. And then if we grab the angle now and we rotate, we can kind of see how that's affecting. So it's going too much there. So we're going to move the X a little bit more that way. Getting there. And it's just about making the right adjustment. So I reckon that's pretty good like that. Looks pretty good to me. And what I'm just going to do here with the ellipse tools, as I'm really going to just go 0.01, I'm going to create a very slight soft edge. Nothing that you're going to notice, but it just helps when we're doing our animations. It just doesn't make it look so cookie cutter-esque. All right, next we're going to Control-C the sculpture again. And over here, with nothing selected, we're going to blank, and we're going to call this one the outer circle. And this is going to be this little ring here. So we're going to chuck this one into viewer 1, and we're also going to just quickly merge it all together so that we can see the output over here in viewer 2. So all we do is drag that to the merge 3, merge 2. It's going to create another merge for us. Now we need to create 2 ellipses. Okay, so to do that, we're going to create the outer one first and then the inner one. So with that selected, space, type in ellipse, and first thing we're going to do is create our equals, enter, create our quick expression, drag it to the width, hit enter so that we can, create the effect. We're going to move that to the center, and we're going to just quickly drag it down and move this around until we have a really nice circle covering this image like so. Looks good to me. So now that we have that one there, we're going to hit shift space again, add an ellipse in the middle, and this one is going to cut out the center portion. So we're going to create our expression, hit enter, and what we're going to do with this one is change it to subtract. And as we bring this in, now you can see we're creating that hole there for us. So we're just going to move this around and create that effect. So we're just going to resize it until we have that outer circle like we want it. So it's getting, and again, if you want to create a more accurate mask, you can not use the ellipse and you can just hand draw it yourself. Probably the better way to do it, probably, but anyway, this is just a nice quick way. All right, so that's probably going to have to do. And again, with this one, we're just going to create a quick little tiny soft edge, nothing massive. And again, with the ellipse one, I'm going to create a 0.01, very slight effect. And after this outer circle, I'm going to bring these down, and we're going to just create the transform, shift space, transform. Going to add our transform node there. And again, so now we have our rotating circle, the outer circle that is. We're just going to move the pivot point around until we have it in the right spot. And again, we just use our rotate until we think we've got it in the right spot. So I think just a little bit more to that side. Looks good to me. We're going to reset the angle. Now we're just going to quickly clean up this graph a little bit. So selecting these down the bottom, we're going to group them. So Command or Control G, and we're just going to call this group the outer circle, or whatever works for you, just so that we know what it is, outer circle. And then we're going to rename the transform node as well, and we're just going to call that the OC transform, so we know it's the outer circle transform. Going to do this on the other side, so Control G, move this over here, rename it, inner circle. So as you can see now with the inner circle, if I move it, it's going behind the outer ring. Now you can either have it like that, or we can swap these nodes around. So deselect everything and have this outer transform ring go into the background, so the yellow, and the merge 2 go into the foreground. And now if we move the inner circle, you can see it goes out on the front like so, and that's what we want. So we've pretty much created the majority of this effect. All we need to do now is create that glow that sort of pulses in and out, and then we can start animating, which is pretty much the easiest part of the whole lot, to be honest. So to start creating the glow, we're going to chuck a background node just by grabbing it down here. We're going to chuck it into viewer 1 so we can see it. We're going to make it a color, something that we want to use. Let's use purple. And then what we're going to rename this is we're just going to rename this glow. I don't know. Yeah, glow effect. Hit enter. And then we're going to shift space and just do mask paint. So we're going to quickly create a sort of effect or a shape or something. Doesn't matter how it works, just something interesting. So we're just going to, in this one, I'm just going to create a couple of different lines, and it doesn't matter too much because we're actually going to be masking these out at the end, so you're not going to really see it too much anyway. So again, just creating a bit of a line shape like so, nothing too interesting. And if I drag the output of the glow effect onto the output of the merge 3 to create another merge node, so we're going to chuck this one up here so it's nice and out of the way. So you can see here we have our weird shape thing like so. Not very exciting at the moment, but don't worry, we'll make it look better. So we're going to glow effect, shift space, and we're going to type in glow, and we're actually going to give it a glow. So, and you can play around with how you want it to glow and all that sort of stuff. So I think that looks pretty good, nothing too crazy. What we need to do now is create pretty much the same effect that we did over here with the 2 ellipse masks to sort of separate this out. And we're going to do that by plugging it into the merge 4, because this is the foreground of the merge 4. By creating a mask, it's going to affect the foreground. So what we'll do is we're going to select those, Control G to group them, and we're just going to name the group something fun. So let's call it glow shape. Nice stuff. And we're doing this just so we understand how it all works. With the merge 4 selected, we're going to shift space and add an ellipse. And we're going to just put this one over here just so we can know. You can see that having everything organized is the most important thing in Fusion. And that's why I like snapping it to grids, because then you can zoom out and go, oh, look at that. It's nice and neat. All right, so this ellipse we're going to bring in. We're going to quickly create our expression like we did on the rest. Equals width. Hit enter. And we're going to bring the width down. And it doesn't need to be too exact on this one. So we're going to just, at this point, we're just going to have it like this size, just so we can see what we're doing. And then with this ellipse tool selected, we're going to go shift space, ellipse, and we're going to, let's move these across, to subtract. And now if we quickly make our expression, so equals, move it to width, hit enter. And now if we move this one in, now you can see we have this cool sort of separation effect here. And then by feathering them, so what we'll do is we'll feather this one a little bit, not a lot, and then we'll feather this one a bit. Not too much, just a little bit. All right, so this is where things get a little bit complicated. So this is our outer ring, this is our inner ring. So we're going to use the outer ring to control the inner ring. So we're going to rename this one and call it the ring control. Name it something that you're going to understand, okay? That's the important thing. And what we're going to do is, so we've created this expression where the height is equal to the width. So if we control the height, the width comes in and out. What we want to do is have it so that the ellipse here, if we move the width in this one, it controls the outside. So what we're going to do is this ring control, we're going to go equals on the width. So equals, actually, we're going to jump into this one and let's drop this down, go at the top and pin it so that it stays there. Go back to the ring control. I know this is complicated. Double click on the width, go equals, space. It's going to bring up our Pickwick. We're going to go drag it down to the width of the first one, but then we're going to add a little bit on the top, go plus 0.05, enter. And so now you can see we have this sort of effect, whereas if I drag the width of this one, now we have this weird effect here. And as I'm just noticing, I've actually done this back to front, so we can rename this just ellipse and call this one the control. This is our control ring. And so now with this one selected, if I control the width, if I move it in and out, you can see we have our glow effect and we can have it pulse out and in, and there you go. So now we can create that glow effect. So I'm going to just reset that. Now we are ready to animate. This is the hard part. So to animate everything, we're going to go to a single viewer and we're going to start animating. So when you look at the BennTK effect, he does the glow. So let's go back here. So he comes on over to the item. You have a couple glow effect and animation. So what we're going to do is we're just going to animate it first. So we're going to just, with the control ring selected, we're going to keyframe the width. We're going to have it keyframed there. Going to move, actually, let's keep it easy. So on frame 5, we're going to keyframe it. Then we're going to go to 10 frames forward and we're going to move it in to the bottom and then forward another 10, so to 25, and we're going to reset it out. So now if we play this back, we have our ring go in and back out like so. Creates a little magic, and now we're going to control the outer ring, and by selecting the transform you see as we rotate it, it rotates like so. Now one thing I did notice just quickly is with this ellipse tool, make sure that it actually encompasses this whole circle. That was a mistake on my behalf, so make sure it encompasses the whole thing. That way when you rotate it, you can see. So we're going to start this animation maybe at frame 23. So we're going to reset the angle, set a keyframe. So it's going to start rotating just at the start here. And we're going to go forward, not much, maybe to frame 35. We're going to animate it just to 180 degrees. So not a whole lot. And so now as we play this, it rotates. And then what we're going to do at frame 33 with the inner circle, we're going to animate that angle and we're going to animate it in the opposite direction. So we're going to go to frame 45. We're going to animate that to -90. So it's going to go in the other direction. So now if we play this, and we're overlapping some of the animations so that they sort of fit together. And so it's going to rotate like so. So it's going to end up frame 45. And then at frame 45, I'm going to set a keyframe for the outer circle. And I'm going to go forward to 55 and I'm going to reset it. However, I'm also going to grab the inner circle and I'm going to move it. So on frame 45, I'm going to set a keyframe for the center so that it's in position. And I'm going to move forward to frame 60 and I'm going to move it to the side. And what we can also do there is rotate it a little bit as well. So we can just rotate it back to 0. And by doing so, it's going to kind of look like it's rolling off like so. All right. So now what we're going to also do is we're just going to move it off to the side just a little bit more. Cool. Now we're ready to do our fly through, okay? So to do that, we need to create one more transform, and this is going to control everything down here, okay? So we're going to grab the last merge node, hit space, add a transform, like so, and let's rename this one main transform. Great. So now if I scale this one in and out, it controls the whole thing. So at frame 60, we're going to set a size, and we're literally going to move forward to frame 70 because we want this one to be really quick, and we're going to bring this right up. So right up and over so that we cannot see it anymore. And so if I play this back, we zoom through. All right, so it rotates to the side, zoom through, looks good. To add a little bit of pizzazz to this, what we could do is animate the motion blur on this particular node. So to do that, we can go to the sort of the settings on the transform, go use motion blur, and then we're actually going to keyframe it. So we're going to set it to 0 at frame 59, so just before we start to zoom in. So we're going to set it at 0, go forward to frame 60, going to set it to 2. And so now what happens as it zooms through, we get a nice motion blur effect and ends like so. And what we could do is, if we really want to, doesn't really matter, but drop the quality to 0. And pretty much that's everything done. So what we could do as well is add just a little bit of pizzazz by putting a bit of a camera shake in there, add a little bit of fake motion. So we could just hit shift space on the main transform, type in camera, we're gonna camera shake, hit enter. And so with this one, we just need to change a few things. So first off, we don't want it to rotate. So we're gonna drop that down. And we're going to also drop these down to pretty much 0.05 and 0.05 and play around, so probably a little bit lower. So let's go 0.03, 0.03, because we just don't want it to sort of overlap on the edge there. And what we can actually do is grab the edges here and do mirror. And so what it does there is mirrors it. So we're actually not going to notice that effect too much. I'm going to bring the speed down so it's not doing it super quickly. Bring the strength down a bit. And now if we play this back, we have this very slight movement. Makes it look a little bit less static as it plays through. Everything rotates and moves. The outer ring's still turning. And then we zoom through like so. Very, very nice. And we can do, if we want to color correct things, what you can do is at this point, add a color correction after the camera shake. So color corrector, and you can use that to change everything. So if you want to make it a little bit less orange, drag it in the opposite direction. And what we could do as well is after the great wall clip, add another color corrector. So we go over here, let's see that. And what we might do is let's bring the hue, maybe bring it to something like that, a little bit more autumny. And then if we move back to the edit page, we're going to quickly add this cache, this clip. This is the effect that we ended up creating. So very nice. Now, obviously you can play around with that camera shake. I think maybe that was a little bit too intense, so we could probably drop it down a little bit, make it a little bit less frequent. But I think the learnings that you get in this video to create this effect will help you add this to your own scene. Like I said, the way BennTK would have done it is to avoid tracking and all that, he would have created a freeze frame of this point and then use this to animate along. And obviously he's done a few extra things here and there that you could do as well. We've just done what we could do with this particular image. And again, I think if you follow this along, message me if you need any help with it. We'll try help you along, but I think the learnings from this will really help you. So if you enjoy this video, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next lesson.